Welcome to our Facebook Live show. I am your host, Dr. Cory Frogley, and excited to share our topic with you today on reputation marketing. And we have one of the best in the business today because not only has he built incredible reputations for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of doctors, thousands of clinics, but he's actually written a book. And this is a phenomenal book called Word of Mouth. And if you haven't read this yet, by the end of the show, you're going to find out how to get a copy and implement this into your practice, because Jim Richardson has been working on reputation marketing with doctors for, I don't want to call out your age, Jim, but for decades. I mean, this is, as we all know, reputation marketing has gone from just our patients talking about us to their circle of influence. And it's completely changed in the ability for people to find out about you, your practice, who's in your practice, and those type of things. And so that whole evolution of going from the old days of word of mouth to now the era that we live in of word of mouth. Jim, what inspired you to write this book and to dedicate your life to this particular topic?
Oh, that's a great question, Cory. Thanks for having me on your show. I think that the inspiration came just from an awareness that this indeed is a major trend that has taken place because of digital age. And I don't know how I happened to come upon the title. It just came to me. It found me, I suppose. But I have had an experience with some clients where, in fact, I'll just tell you the quick story. One of my clients, one day I popped in. This was, a long time ago, and he said, "Jim, what do you know about Yelp?" And I said, actually not wanting to admit that I knew virtually nothing about Yelp, I said, but also not wanting to tell him that, I said, "Why do you ask?" And he said, "Because Yelp is destroying my business."
Wow.
I'm a 5-star business on Google. I'm a 5-star business elsewhere. And on Yelp, I'm a 2-star business. And unfortunately, people rely and trust Yelp. And Yelp has filtered 75 5-star reviews that appear on Google and elsewhere.
Wow.
And they have they promoted, or they featured a whole bunch of 1- and 2-star reviews.
Mm-hmm.
I went home. I was appalled because I didn't know about this filter. But I went home and looked at his Yelp page, and sure enough, I was absolutely incensed by what I learned, and began to look more into into Yelp's practices, and found, frankly, just found an appalling, at least to me, it was appalling methodology that they use to score or to judge the value and the relevance of a review.
Yeah.
And right then, I determined that I would do something to help this guy, and that I would make a difference. And so I hired a team of engineers, and we built software that did the things that other companies now are doing quite regularly. We sold that company in 2014. But I remain in the business, and I've always been in marketing. And so this is just a sort of a subset of that. And it's a blast for me. I love it. It is so important. It has always been important. But now, instead of someone telling 10 friends that they've had a good experience or less, they can literally tell tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people because of this digital age. So it's almost like word of mouth. Not almost, it is. Word of mouth now is even more important than it has ever been.
Wow.
And it's certainly just as credible as it has always been, because we trust the opinions of people who go to or who experience businesses or a movie or a car. There are dozens of those kinds of resources out there, from Consumer Reports to Car and Driver to Rotten Tomatoes. And the same thing is true with websites that affect us in the healthcare space.
Well, it's almost like we've given people a megaphone by giving them these platforms to speak on. And Yelp is one of those that I don't fully understand. I think I've left one review in my entire lifetime, and it was after an extremely long drive with the family in the car. I've got 4 kids, so you can imagine what that's like. And we get to the hotel, and it's 7 o'clock at night. It's not like it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's time to check in, and we check into the hotel, and they told us that the room wasn't ready yet, that they were still cleaning it. And they literally asked us if we would go to dinner and then come back to have the room ready. And I was so tired. I mean, they just caught me in the worst timing. And I did. I went on and wrote a negative review on them.
Well, and that's the experience that people have in general. You either have to deliver way over the top experience, or you have to be slightly below average. What we see when we look at reviews in general is there are very few 3-star reviews.
Yeah.
They polarize to the extremes of 1 and 2 star or 4 to 5.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in this experience or in this digital age, there are a lot of people like you. They tend to not praise, and they tend to just vent. Understandably, it's a total understandable experience for people to scream when they are not understood, when they're not heard, when they're not served properly. And I think it's a wonderful platform. For some reason, Yelp tends to attract naysayers and complainers. I don't know why that's the case. Google seems to get more positive reviews. TripAdvisor in the travel space, and Yelp seems to get. They're a magnet for negatives. It's weird.
So, what is the secret? If you're a doc and you're working on your Yelp reviews, what is it? One of those platforms? Because I see a lot of focus on Google. I see a lot of focus on Facebook. Is it something that? I mean, how do you do that? What do you recommend for these docs on getting their Yelp reviews in a positive direction?
Well, what I would have recommended 2 months ago is what has changed. I can't recommend that any longer today, because Yelp literally within the last 3 to 4 weeks changed its terms of service dramatically, and they are now penalizing. In fact, they're threatening to remove the Yelp pages of any business that solicits reviews, or even any business that monitors Yelp reviews. So you can't. So we have disconnected Yelp, and in fact, the better reputation marketing software companies have totally disconnected Yelp from their software, both from a scraping standpoint to collect reviews and then put them up on the assets, the digital assets of the client.
Right.
Plus also connecting to Yelp to just take patients directly there to leave a review. There have been some other significant changes on Google as well that we'll talk about in a little bit. But so you can't use technology to get to Yelp anymore. So what I've done is, as we advise our clients, I suggest that they create a sign. We actually have a sign that we give to our clients that invites people to tell our clients if they Yelp, if they use the Yelp platform. Now,
so you're asking them. You're just asking
them to come forward, and and when they do, then we make it a point to to coach our clients to do a super over the top job of caring for that patient, and then ask or mention that we would love to have a review from you. Don't ask for one. In every other instance, we ask for feedback. We don't ask for a review. We ask for feedback. And then as Yelp reviews grow, the quantity of them, of course, if the quality is good, which I'll talk to you about in a second as well. If the quality is good and the quantity is sufficient, then we write to Yelp on behalf of our clients, and we request some Yelp specific signage that we put on the door that say things like, people love us on Yelp, their window clings, and they go by the door on the way in. Unfortunately, Yelp is so big; they are the 800-pound gorilla, and even though I detest them from a healthcare application. Sure. I frankly use them when I'm looking for a restaurant.
Yeah, I do too. I mostly use them for that.
Right, exactly. But a lot of people.
Are they known for healthcare? I mean, do people really use it for healthcare?
Here's the problem. Not necessarily. People don't go to Yelp to search for a dentist. But what happens is when they're on Google searching for a dentist, or
the Yelp reviews come up.
Yelp is so big and gets so much traffic that Google raises them to the top of the list, and people click Yelp to go, and therefore by default they're searching there.
That's a great point. So for that very reason alone, our audience should put some focus into their Yelp reviews. I just looked up my clinic. We've got only 6 reviews, and we're 3.5 stars.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't that sad? And I know your team, and you are not an average clinic.
Right.
You're so way above average. Again, the problem is, there are a couple problems. One is Yelp tends to filter reviews that they don't consider to be credible, or reviewers that they don't consider to be credible. So in your case, Cory, since you've left only one review, if it's a negative review, Yelp tends to feature negative reviews, even if you've only left one. But if you've left a positive review, because you have only one under your belt, Yelp does not yet consider you to be credible. And so if you say something nice about somebody, Yelp tends to think that you're a friend or a brother-in-law.
That's interesting. They're trying to protect their audience but by doing so, they're kind of making it hard for the business side of us to want to push them, to talk about them.
There is a documentary that's being produced right now called The $1 Billion Bully, and it's all about Yelp's business practices. Wow. My former partner is featured in that film, and what we found is that Yelp has been sued in class actions over a dozen times, and they have prevailed every time.
Wow.
Because they hide behind the Free Speech Act that allows them to say, we're not posting reviews, we're simply publishing reviews that others are posting. Yeah. So if you have a problem, don't come to us, go to the people who are actually posting reviews. The problem
that's held up every time, yeah.
It has. It's weird that it does, because the problem is Yelp, not that Yelp is publishing other people's content, but rather they are determining which content to post. To me, that's a violation of the First Amendment rights. Yeah. If you posted everything like TripAdvisor does, then that makes more sense. So Yelp has this secret algorithm that they think probably provides value in the marketplace, as they're a large public company. Yeah. That is just a disaster in terms of its actual working, especially relative to those in the healthcare space.
Yeah, for sure.
So the challenge is finding people who Yelp regularly that therefore Yelp considers to be credible.
Yeah.
Because if you ask a patient to give you a review, or you tell them that you'd love a review, and they leave one and they've never left one before, or they open a Yelp account to leave one for you, that review is almost certain to be filtered.
Wow.
Not forever, though, because once you have 8 or 10 reviews under your belt as a Yelper, then Yelp will pop those reviews out of the filter. So I've left 150 reviews. My reviews are never filtered. They are always posted because Yelp considers me to be credible.
That makes sense, yeah.
So that's the key.
So let's say we do get a negative review on Yelp. What's your process? What do you train your clients to do to handle those?
Yeah, that's changed a bit too in this age of HIPAA compliance, and even though you're not discussing patient treatment and case files publicly, there is a gray area of whether you should even acknowledge that a patient is a part of your practice.
Wow.
So it's a gray area. I do cover this in my book, and
this could be a bait and switch where they leave a negative review to try to get you to disclose that they're a patient, and the next thing you know, you have a lawsuit on your hands.
Potentially, but it certainly depends on what you say. Now, what I would have said 6 months ago, even though that HIPAA was still around, what I would have said is, go ahead and respond, but be very, very careful. Do not engage this reviewer in an argument and try to defend yourself, because that only incites this ire.
You don't need this spread across for everybody to see. So,
exactly.
What is that response? What are you coaching people to just respond with? Is it general? Is it?
Yeah, that's a great question, and the answer is keep responses generic. First of all, respond. That's appropriate, so that people feel heard and that others see that you care. But often, you won't believe the number of times when I talk with a doctor who says, we've checked our entire patient database. There is no patient here by that name.
That's what I would be tempted to do.
Indeed. So the proper response is to say, thank you for your comments, but we have checked our entire patient database. We don't see you in our system. It appears as though you have made a mistake and reviewed the wrong office. If we would absolutely welcome a conversation with you, we care very much about the experience of our patients in our practice. And if we are mistaken, please contact us. We'd love to figure this out with you. Those kinds of comments. I met a couple of years ago a moving company, house moving company. They were 2 stars on Yelp, and they began to respond to people in that regard, and they are now 5 stars, even on Yelp, which is a tough hill to climb. But they reached out and fixed that problem.
So let me ask you this then. If you post something like that in response, does Yelp monitor that? Do they see that somebody left a review that wasn't even really a patient? And do they filter that out? I mean, if they're going to filter the good stuff out, they should be filtering the bad stuff.
You'd think. And yet, just like in traditional media, bad news sells. People are more interested in the scandal, apparently. So Yelp does have very specific terms of service that our team understands, and we are able to consult with a practice and identify and read every review that is published, and find little areas that could represent a violation of Yelp's terms of service. And when we do, we report that review, and Yelp takes those reviews down or puts them in the filter, which can be seen, or which it's more difficult to see. We're successful about 50-60% of the time, not 100%, because some reviews are well, legitimate or not, Yelp considers them to be so, and so we're stuck. But the best strategy, of course, is to bury negative reviews with positive ones.
Yeah, with as many positive, yeah.
And the challenge with that is that you can't go from having 1 or 2 Yelp reviews to all of a sudden getting 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 a week. You can't go from 0 to 60 overnight, because Yelp will conclude that you are gaming the system, you're violating Yelp's standards or Yelp's policies of requesting reviews, or you're using some kind of digital application, which again, digital applications are fine in with every other review site, just not with Yelp. And that's again in the last month.
So would you say building your credibility, you want to slowly build that, but by building credibility on the Google and the Facebook reviews, that hopefully if people click on Yelp, they're also going to look at your reviews on Google. And if you have 5 stars on Google and maybe 3.5 stars on Yelp, there's still maybe some credibility.
That's right. We're all trained to look for gold stars. When we do a Google search, our eyes gravitate to gold stars. So those are the things that stand out. So having reviews in lots of different places, having great reviews in lots of different places is definitely to your advantage. And it is true that people pay a lot of attention to Google, and that's appropriate because Google values Google's own assets, and Google reviews are critical in that space as well. Yeah. So Google's probably the most important. Yelp, frankly, is probably right a close second, just because they rank so well in Google searches. And then Facebook is also important, but Facebook doesn't show up in Google searches. So those are the things that are also nice to have. Yellow Pages, Merchant Circle, City Search, and then things in the healthcare space, Health Grades, ZocDoc, those kinds of sources are places where patients can leave reviews. They don't have to have accounts, and so it's easier for them to leave reviews of their experience in the office. Yeah. Something that also just came out about 3 weeks ago from Google is a statement that they are looking for something that they call review gating. What that means is their software, in fact, this is where our software used to work. We would ask for feedback and the feedback question always was, would you recommend us to your family and friends? Right. If someone said no, we know that there's a problem, and we want to know what that problem is. So we would ask them, and their comments would go straight to the office in an internal communication, not to be shared publicly. If they said, yes, I'd be happy to recommend you, that's when we would take them to a review site. Now, Google calls that gating. And they've said that if they discover review gating, that there will be consequences to the office that does that. So we've changed our processes in regards to Google. And of course, that's probably the trend. That's where most businesses will go. Most review sites will go in the future.
Any idea what the consequences are? What are they threatening with?
What Yelp did a while ago was they placed a large banner at the top of the Yelp listing that says this business. I can't remember the exact verbiage, but it was bright red, and it said this business uses deceptive tactics to enhance their Yelp rating. Wow. So I don't know that Google, I've not seen Google do that. Right now, Yelp is saying that if you violate our terms of service, we'll shut you down. We'll take your page offline, which is a really serious consequence if Google does that. Yeah. So I don't think I'd mess around with this and still try to game the system. That just won't work. Yeah, but there are ways. 90% of the patients, maybe 95 or even more % of the patients in a practice are happy. So let's leverage those. Let's ask them to help us promote and not worry about the negative reviews. In fact, negative reviews, a few negative reviews, really enhance the credibility of all of the positive ones. The whole objective here is to just pay attention to this area, and because it's an important one. This is a sandbox that you have to learn to play in.
Yeah,
we do it quite well.
It really is.
Yeah.
Experience, Jim. What is your number one tip to these?
In my book, I talk about 3 R's. The most important thing in collecting reviews, and I don't want to spend the whole session on reviews, although they are extremely important. But the 3 R's in reviews are regularity, so getting regular reviews on a consistent basis. Recency, that means a 2-day-old review is much more important and much more credible both to Google as well as regular visitors than a 2-month-old or certainly a 2-year-old review. And then rating, of course. So regularity, recency, and rating, we want, of course, 5-star. We want 5-star experiences. So you got to deliver a 5-star experience to your patients. And I often ask patient staff when I do a morning huddle, and I come in to consult, I say, who's the most important person? Who's most responsible for the review, for a positive experience with the patient? Mm-hmm. And they say, everyone says, well, it's the doctor. And I say, wrong. It's you. It's everyone in the practice. Anyone who touches that patient throughout their patient experience in the office is responsible for your part of that 5-star experience and being worthy of a 5-star review. So that's where this is so critical.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, Jim, with your expertise and experience, I know we've got a special offer for our audience today, and the stuff you've shared with us already has been incredible, and stuff that our clients can implement, pretty much immediately. But you've got your book and you've got your service as a company. What can you do for our audience today?
Well, Cory, because of our friendship, and I love to support you, I love what you do. I'm thrilled to share my expertise in this area. Click-Through Consulting is a full-service online digital advertising agency. We build websites, we do search engine optimization, we certainly do reputation management, we do video marketing, we do pay-per-click, AdWords, things like that, and lots of other things as well. Yeah. One of the things that we do that I find when I do a search for a prospective client, if I don't see that they rank well in a Google search, I know that there are specific problems. There are reasons why Google doesn't favor them. And what I've learned is that in this Google game, it's all about trust. If Google trusts you, they're going to feature you. And what I mean by trust is, if they feature you and people go to you, will they have a great experience, which will reflect positively back upon Google? Right. So this trust factor is extremely important. And if you're not ranking high, you're not being featured high by Google, it's because Google doesn't trust you. So we do this analysis, a very comprehensive diagnostics of everything you're doing with your web presence, whether you're doing it or whether it's being done sort of by chance. It's reflecting upon you. And so we have a process and a diagnostic tool called DIMO. Dominate Your Market Online is what DIMO stands for. Nice. And it is extremely detailed. It also examines you and compares you to your top 3 competitors. So in this process, you'll see why they rank well, why Google features them compared to you, and what you need to do in order to fix or to play in this Google sandbox I talked about earlier, and raise your credibility level. So this process is hand researched by my team. It takes about a week to research and assemble. We then give our our clients an hour to go through this report and talk about strategies to fix problems that are very obvious problems.
Yeah.
We normally charge $500 for this analysis, this diagnostic analysis and audit, but because it's you and because of the quality of your audience, we've lowered that price dramatically. We're asking people to pay $50 for this report, and we'll do everything as if people were paying full price at $500, but we'll do two other additional things for that $50. One is we will give 2 weeks of free reputation management software that incorporates all the things we've talked about today, and set it up and consult with you, and then determine whether or not. And in fact, you'll get reviews up on Google even during those first 2 weeks. Wow. And then the last thing, of course, is I'm happy to give you an autographed version of my best-selling book, Amazon best-selling book, Word of Mouse. And
I highly recommend it.
And then, of course, I'd love to have a conversation with you about anything in the book. I think it's pretty well written. Of course, I'm a little biased, but evidently others do too, as evidenced by Amazon's bestseller status.
That's fantastic. You know, Jim, to claim this, we're going to put this up on the screen for our users today. Just type this in, ctcdymo.com. Go to this link. It's a landing page especially for us. You guys, you can't get this anywhere else. $50? Are you kidding me? I mean, that's ridiculous. And you will not find a better human being than Jim Richardson to provide this service for you and his team. He's built a 5-star team because he runs a 5-star business. And there's no pushy sales. I've worked with Jim. This is a guy that's going to come in and give you honest feedback. And again, just to get his book is killer. So please take advantage of this. You can't go wrong. So, Jim, any last tips for us before we end the show today?
It's just been a complete joy for me to talk with you, Cory. I think we've covered the big rocks relative to credibility on Google, credibility in the eyes of the general public as you market your practice on the web. Certainly, your website is extremely important, and that's something that is a big part of the DIMO audit that I would love people to take advantage of. Not because I want to sell anything particularly, but because I really want to help. And there are reasons. If you don't show up well, there are reasons for it. Let's figure out what those are.
Absolutely.
So I'd love to join people in this effort.
Beautiful.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks again for being on our show. This is In the Blue. We're grateful for you joining our show today. Remember, share this. Click to follow our show. Subscribe. Click the bell if you want to be notified when we're live so that you can see more great guests like Jim Richardson on our show. We're here every Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern, bringing you tips and tools of scalability to help your practice become, like today, a 5-star show. Have a great day.
Thank you.